All right, everybody, welcome into the channel. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. Please be sure to do that if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to be part of the conversation, leave a comment. If you really want to be part of the conversation and ensure that your comment gets read, be sure to leave it as a super chat. Reading all super chats, going to try to get to as many comments as possible. But today, Diana Rossini of The Athletic reporting that the Steelers are expected to make an offer to pending free agent quarterback Sam Darnold. Many around the league believe Darnold will wind up in Seattle, Rossini says, but Pittsburgh is doing its due diligence on any potential options ahead of the new league year. And after yesterday, where a lot of reporting was, specifically from Alan Saunders of Steelers Now saying, hey, the Steelers and Fields aren't close on a deal. Now hearing that they're offering or prepared to offer a deal to Sam Darnold, there's too much smoke for there not to be some fire here in terms of, hey, they may believe that Justin Fields isn't going to be coming back. And so if that's the case, they got to do what they got to do. As I fix my necklace there, they have to do what they have to do in terms of going outside the organization to get a deal done. Darnold is a name that's kind of been floated, but I don't think anybody's necessarily taken it as, I don't want to say realistic, because I think all options at this point should be taken as, potentially realistic options. But with Sam, I long drove the Sam Darnold train back in, was it 2021, whenever, after Ben Roethlisberger retired, or going into the final year of Ben's career, where Sam was going to be going elsewhere. Obviously, he goes to Carolina. They start off very hot. They, go 3-0 in their first 3 games. Sam Darnold's playing well. Didn't end well, obviously. And, he goes to San Francisco to be their backup, and then lands in Minnesota on a 1-year, $10 million deal. And then last year has a career year where he throws 35 touchdowns. The Vikings win 14 games. They're the top seeded wild card team in the NFC. But in the final 2 games for the Vikings, we saw a lot of the old Sam Darnold in there, where he wasn't making good decisions. The offense looked sluggish, and it just looked like, the Sam Darnold from the Jets days that we had grown used to. And, while it may not be fair to necessarily say that and say, oh, well, there's the real Sam Darnold, everything else can be chucked away and chalked up as a fluke, I don't think that's the case. But I do think that there's certainly a ceiling on Sam Darnold. And in terms of, do I think Sam Darnold could work out in Pittsburgh? I'm hesitant because of what I just pointed out. Last year with Minnesota, he had a top 3 play caller and play designer in the league, and Kevin O'Connell in his headset. He had some of the best weapons in football with Justin Jefferson, who's the best receiver in the game, Jordan Addison, who was one of the best number 2 receivers in the game, a good run game with Aaron Jones, and a very good defense on the other side of the ball. Steelers don't have a lot of that. They don't have an elite play caller. They don't have elite weapons. They got a young offensive line that's going to be very hit and miss at times. And their defense, they've got a few stars on that side of the ball, but it wasn't amongst the 5 best units in the league last year, I wouldn't say. So there's certainly some things that Minnesota had last year to Sam's disposal that he wouldn't have in Pittsburgh. And I think the biggest thing is going from Kevin O'Connell to Arthur Smith. And nothing against Art. I think he's a perfectly fine offensive coordinator for the most part. I don't think he's a great one. I don't think he's a horrible one. He certainly had games last year where he wasn't doing his best work, but he had games last year where he was really in his bag. I think he's a fine offensive coordinator, but is Sam Darnold going to be able to thrive with just a fine offensive coordinator? Is he going to be able to do a lot with George Pickens and whoever the number 2 receiver is going to be? And there's a lot of questions that would need answered there. And also, what's he going to cost? I have zero comfort giving Sam Darnold $40 million a year, which he very well could garner. He's arguably going to be the best free agent quarterback remaining. or the best, quarterback available. Matthew Stafford obviously staying with the Rams. He's not going to get traded. And if you look at the other quarterbacks that are going to be available, is it Fields and Darnold that are the two best? Maybe Aaron Rodgers, but even then, if you're a team looking for a long-term answer, you're not going to bring in Aaron Rodgers to be that. And, he's going to be a quick stopgap that you can hopefully rely on for a year, 2 years, maybe. So Sam's put himself in a really good situation for himself because he's still young. He's only in his mid-20s. He's coming off a 35 touchdown year. And somebody's going to pay him. Now, is it going to be $40 million? I don't know. But I think at minimum, it'll be the Baker Mayfield contract where he gets 3 for $100. So you're going to be paying $33.3 million a year for Sam Darnold. That's a risk. And then it becomes a question of, okay, well, what would you rather do? Either way, it's throwing darts at a board and hoping. Would you rather take the risk of paying Sam Darnold at least $34 million a year? Or do you want to pay Justin Fields between $15 and $18 million for a year or two? That's a question you got to ask yourself. I know what I would rather do. And it's the Justin Fields option. Like, as good of a year as Sam Darnold may have had, I don't believe that it's going to be a long-term thing. I think that was the peak of how far his powers will take him. And even so, it has to be done with everything right around him. I know there's a lot of people in the Sam Darnold hive. And like I said, I used to drive the Sam Darnold train. I think I've since given off those responsibilities to, I don't know, who's like still really big into Sam Darnold. Dan Hanzus of the Heed the Call podcast. Mina Kimes has been a big defender of Sam Darnold. Obviously, he had a great year last year, but there are still plenty of concerns to be had when it comes to Sam. And I don't know if I would be comfortable with the Steelers giving him $33 million a year, if that is where he ends up. As Diana Rossini pointed out, though, it's largely expected Sam goes to Seattle. They run a very similar system to what O'Connell runs in Minnesota, so there would be some familiarity there. We'd have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they'd have to find another receiver to bring in as well because JSN's their slot guy. So you're going to have to find somewhere else to put. You're going to have to find some boundary guys. Now, you can obviously put JSN on the outside if you want to, but I'm sure that you'd rather at least get at least one more guy for Sam to throw to. So there's a lot of different things that'll go into this. But in terms of what I think when it comes to the Steelers potentially signing Sam Darnold, I'll say this. I would rather them do that than bring back Russ. And I would applaud them for throwing a dart and just trying to see if it stuck to the board. But again, it's a risk. Like with Russell Wilson, there's not really any risk because we all know what would happen. They're going to give him not a whole lot of money. They're going to have a very low ceiling. Probably if they get into the playoffs, it'll be a very similar scene to what it was last year. So, like with Russ, there's not any risk there because we all kind of know what would happen. With Darnold, there's risk because there would come some expectations. I think a lot of Steelers fans would look at what he did last year and say, all right, well, that's better than than any quarterback situation or any quarterback that they had in 2024. And as a blanket statement, yes. But at the same time, is Sam Darnold going to be able to replicate? And look, I don't expect him to replicate what he did in 2024. Is he going to be able to come close to replicating that? Is he going to be able to play good football in a Steelers uniform? I have questions about that just because of the things that Minnesota has being the things that the Steelers don't have. I think there's a lot of raw talent there, but is he going to be a fit? I don't know. And again, it just comes down to, are you comfortable giving Sam Darnold at least $33 million a year? Because that's what he's going to go for. So would you rather do that, or would you rather bring back Justin Fields for what I would guess is going to be between 15 and 18 million? Plenty of things that you got to ask yourself there. And they're all fair questions to ask. I know a lot of people are commenting right now, so let me try to get to them all real quick. Tom says, hey, how you doing, Tom? Appreciate y'all tuning in. Richard says, I wouldn't be surprised. I kind of would be. Like, Darnold hasn't been a name that's been like floated around the Steelers a lot. So I would be a little bit surprised. Again, just based off what Omar Khan and the organization have been saying all offseason, basically that they want it to be Justin or Russ, which by the way, they want it to be Justin. A lot of people in that building don't want it to be Russ. So I would rather be Sam Darnold than Russ. William says, trade a third pick for Joe Milton. You don't got to trade a third round pick for Joe Milton. If Geno Smith is going for a third round pick, you can trade a day 3 pick for Joe Milton. Which, by the way, if they traded a day 3 pick, maybe that's what William's saying, day 3 being third. So forgive me if I misunderstood that. But if they trade, a 6th round pick for Joe Milton, I'd be okay with that. You got it. And my buddy Nick Farabaugh pointed that out today on Twitter. Like, there's not a ready-made franchise quarterback available right now. You got to throw a bunch of darts when you don't have one. Joe Milton would be a dart throw. So I'd be okay giving up a day 3 pick for Joe Milton. What's Darnold's asking price? Like I said, I think at minimum it's going to be the Baker Mayfield contract. And Baker Mayfield got 3 for $100 million from Tampa Bay. And with the cap going up, naturally that would probably go up. So it's probably closer to like 3 for 110. Do you want to pay Baker Mayfield $35 million a year, $36 million a year? Or sorry, do you want to pay Sam Darnold $36 million a year? I don't think I want to do that. I just think that there's too much unknown there. And again, Minnesota had a lot more resources from a play calling standpoint and a weapon standpoint than Pittsburgh does. So that's something that I would have real questions about. Joe Milton could be the future. We'll see. I think that he has a lot of raw talent. We saw that, in week 18. So take that with a big grain of salt. But the pure arm talent's there, and he's incredibly athletic. I don't know if he's, the future, but we'll see. Sarf says 18 for Justin. I think it's possible because Geno Smith, I'd have to look up to see what Geno Smith originally got from Seattle. I think it was somewhere between like 18 and 25. But so I think like between like 15 to $18 million a year for Justin Fields is a realistic expectation. I think he'll get more than what Sam Darnold got last year. Sam Darnold last year got a 1-year deal for $10 million from Minnesota. So I think it'll be more than what Darnold got, because you got to remember, like, Darnold hardly played in San Francisco. Didn't hardly play at all. He got in the Christmas Day game when the Ravens were just beating the piss out of the 49ers and Brock Purdy threw 4 picks. So they put Darnold in and he played fine. But again, the Ravens already had the game in hand. It's not like they were going all out to make things happen. He didn't, and he still got $10 million. I think that Justin Fields in the 6 games that he played showed, all right, there's something there. The talent's there in terms of the running ability. Yeah, he leaves you wanting a little bit more in the pass game. I'm not going to pretend he doesn't, but there's still talent there that can be honed in on. So I think that 15 to 18 I think 18 is probably the absolute cap. I don't think he's going to get more than that, but I think, 14 or 15 to $18 million is realistic. Richard chimes in by saying, I don't believe whoever the quarterback is next year for the Steelers is going to be a bridge quarterback. None of them are going to take the Steelers to the Super Bowl. I think their thought process is this. They want Justin Fields for the same reason I've been saying he makes the most sense. He's a young guy. You can give him the year as the full-time starter without any sort of, quarterback competition with Russell Wilson. You go in, all right, Justin Fields is our guy this year. We'll put as much talent around him as possible. We'll give him the year to show us whether or not he can be the long-term answer. If he's not, you trade up for somebody in 2026 to draft and hope that he's the guy. But outside of everybody else, like, Malik Willis, if they traded a day 3 for Malik Willis, like there's no guarantees that he would end up being a franchise guy. Joe Milton, the same thing. Like all of these are big old dart throws. You just don't know, but you've got to make those risks to try to find out, or else you're just going to be taking a bunch of mediocre guys with low ceilings and remaining a 9-10 win team forever. You don't want that. Truth Bear, Sam Darnold, the Ravens have the AFC North on lock. We'll see, man. I don't expect the Steelers to win the AFC North this year. Obviously, we have a long off season to go before, we start predicting that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm not predicting Pittsburgh to be an AFC North winner. Sam Darnold, the last 2 games of the year, is the real Sam Darnold. Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's what a lot of people are going to say. And fair or not, there's a lot more bad football than there is good football so far in the NFL career of Sam Darnold. And so a lot of people are going to say that, which, again, fair or not, that's what it's going to be. Kevin says, I'd bring back Russ or Justin, and then I'd draft Howard, Dart, or Show. I think that I know they want to bring back Justin. I know for a fact they want to bring back Justin Fields. But at the same time, they talk out of both sides of their mouth because you want Justin, but you're going to keep lowballing him when you know that there's another team on the market that will give him what you aren't giving him. So that's the risk that they're really running. Patriot Watch has 5.5 hours left. Yeah, once the legal tampering period begins, and there's not a deal done, Pittsburgh could be in real hot water. We'll see. Maybe something happens at the 11th hour and they come to an agreement with Justin Fields. If and when they do that, we'll be doing a show. Jay says the problem with the Steelers is that the Rooneys don't like to pay too much guaranteed money. We could potentially lose out on a lot of free agents if we don't start paying. Yeah, that's the thing. Art Rooney is one of the cheapest owners in football, and it's really hurt them. When you have a cheap owner combined with a head coach in which the NFL has passed by X's and O's wise, you get what the Steelers are, just a team stuck in purgatory. Steelers' best option is Russ reunited with DK Metcalf along with Pickens. That's really the only best case scenario where you could have a Super Bowl run. Even then, man, they're not going on a Super Bowl run with that. Russ, as a Steelers fan speaking, Russ is the absolute last thing I want. Because as I've said before, that's just waving the white flag. You know exactly what's going to happen with Russell Wilson. You saw exactly what happened last year with Russell Wilson. That's what Steelers fans would have to look forward to. Nothing would really change. Rodgers with Adams and Pickens is better. Well, Devontae Adams just signed with the Rams. So, Steelers fans, if you haven't seen that yet, that's a wide receiver scratched off the board because Devontae Adams is going to the Los Angeles Rams. 2-year deal, $46 million. Good for Devontae Adams. Kind of going off without Aaron Rodgers. So that's going to be a fun team to watch, by the way, in Los Angeles. Matthew Stafford, Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. That's an offense that's going to be very fun. I won't be surprised if they represent the NFC in the Super Bowl next year. They came pretty darn close to doing it this year. You nailed it with the owner and coach situation in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I don't want to be right about that. I would love nothing more than for the Steelers to have an ownership group that wanted to spend money and a head coach that was progressive and forward thinking. But unfortunately, they've got an owner and a head coach who were stuck in the past, and it's hurt the product that shows up on the field. And that's been a real pain as a fan to watch over the past few years. And as long as Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin are there, I think that the ceiling for Pittsburgh is what it's been the past couple years. Really the past half decade. But Tomlin's going to be there as long as he wants the job because, in my opinion, the Rooneys are completely content with 10-win seasons and no playoff wins. They can keep saying that they aren't, but until they start backing that up with money and making real moves at the quarterback position and maybe building real coaching staffs, then that's what it's going to be. They can keep saying that that's not what it is. You ever try to say something and your mouth won't let you? That's what just happened to me. So they can keep saying that's not how it truly is, but until they start backing that up with actions, that's going to be the narrative, and rightfully so. Fans are pissed. Fans are frustrated. They absolutely have a right to be, because the Steelers don't hire real coaching staffs. Now, granted, they've got a few coaches on their staff right now that are very good. Zach Azani, good wide receiver coach. Tom Arth, good quarterback coach. But the two most promising assistants that they had in Aaron Curry and Grady Brown, they let go somewhere else. So it's a big pain in the butt. And on top of this, and I wrote about this today, they obviously Myles Garrett showed that he cares more about money than winning and went back to Cleveland, becoming the highest paid player, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And so it's pretty likely the Steelers are going to give TJ Watt a similar extension, to which I say they should not. I think the Steelers, rather than giving TJ Watt $40 million a year when he's north of 30, should trade him while they can to a contender like a Buffalo or a Green Bay and get a few draft picks for him, rather than being so sentimental and paying old players and doing so while you don't have a quarterback and just keeping yourself in this bubble where you're not going to get over the hump. And again, I'm a fan above everything. Like, I'm very grateful that I get to, write about football and talk about football as a job, but I'm a fan before anything. And, I love watching TJ Watt go out and play for my favorite team each week. He's been here for a decade and they haven't won anything with him. And that's not necessarily his fault, but why would you pay, a soon-to-be 31-year-old edge rusher $40 million a year when he's still playing good football and you can trade him and start, a small rebuild? Like, that's what good organizations do, is not get sentimental at this time. Like, it just makes more sense to, thank TJ Watt for his time. He's an absolute top 10 Steeler of all time. One of the best Steelers defenders of all time. And will be in the Ring of Honor, will be in the Hall of Fame, all of that good stuff. But, as a Steelers fan, I want to see TJ win. And I know he's not going to do it as a Steeler anytime soon. I love to see him go contend for a Super Bowl with Buffalo or Green Bay. Teams who need another edge rusher to really help get them over that hump. But instead of being smart and starting a quasi rebuild, they're probably going to extend TJ. So we'll see. But again, love TJ Watt. There's a lot of guys on that side of the ball that have been there for a long time that haven't won a playoff game, in large part because the offense has been so bad. And I know a lot of people are going to point out, well, they give up a lot of points in the playoffs. Well, because they're on the field all the time in the playoffs. They're gassed. So, I'm not going to put a lot of the blame on the defense for, all the point. Now, against Baltimore, they couldn't stop anything. And that's completely fair. And by the way, Josh Allen getting a massive new Good Lord in heaven. Josh Allen, 6 years, $330 million, $250 million fully guaranteed, the largest guaranteed ever given to any NFL player. Hey, any of y'all who watch my content, follow me on Twitter, you know who my favorite player in the world is, and it's Joshua Patrick Allen. So congratulations to Josh Allen for becoming the NFL's highest paid player in history. Absolutely well-deserved. For my money right now, the best quarterback, most talented quarterback in football. And I hope to see him win a ring very soon. So good for Josh Allen. That's great. As all these quarterback rumors continue to go crazy. It's nice to see a quarterback who's played great football for the past 5-6 years get a massive new contract. So good for Josh Allen. Hopefully it results in a Super Bowl win for him very, very soon. So yeah, good for Josh Allen. But yeah, if you're just joining the show, obviously this is a Steelers-centric show, but I saw some people commenting about Josh Allen. I needed to see it for myself. And now he is the highest paid player in history. So good for Josh Allen. But like I said, in case you're just tuning in to the show, Diana Rossini of The Athletic reporting that the Steelers are expected to make an offer to pending free agent quarterback Sam Darnold. Rossini says that many around the league believe Darnold will wind up in Seattle, but Pittsburgh is doing its due diligence on any potential options ahead of the new league year. So, and like I said at the beginning of the show, there's just a lot of risk that comes with giving Sam Darnold a contract because he's going to be a lot more expensive than a guy like Justin Fields. And so, I'll ask, a lot of Steelers fans in the chat, like, would you rather give Sam Darnold a contract that's probably going to be in the range of 3 years, $110 million? Or would you rather give Justin Fields a 2-year deal worth somewhere in the range of $15 to $18 million? I know which one I would take. And I think there's just too much inherent risk that comes with Darnold being a product of his environment in Minnesota, having arguably the best play caller in the NFL in Kevin O'Connell, best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson, very good number 2 wide receiver in Jordan Addison, a good run game in Aaron Jones, and a great defense on the other side of the ball. Like, the Steelers don't have a great play caller. They don't have superb weapons. Like, they would be asking Sam Darnold to do a lot. And those are things that I just don't feel like I'm comfortable with. So Noah says Fields and build around him, use that money and get 2 corners, 2 wide receivers, draft a running back and nose tackle and see what happens. That's kind of where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at, actually. Truth Bear says, as a rival fan, there's a slight chance that Fields could actually improve, and that would be much scarier than Darnold. Darnold behind that offensive line would be a disaster for you guys. Yeah, and I know that I'm kind of labeled as like the big rah Justin Fields guy, which is, I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I do love Justin Fields. But I'm also, I'd like to think I'm realistic about Justin Fields. I've never pounded the table and said he's a top 10 guy. But I think I don't think he's reached his ceiling yet. And I think a lot of that has to do with the complete dysfunction that he suffered with in Chicago. And then last year when he had some stability and, I think with each game that he started, he got better. I think that his peak is being, somewhere between the 16th and 18th best quarterback in football. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 10 guy, but I think he can be, in that class of, okay, solid starter that with things around him, you can win games with. Now, obviously he's, more of a modern quarterback where he's going to run and his legs are a pain in the butt to game plan for. So those are all things you got to take into consideration when talking about Justin Fields. So that's what I would rather do is take a cheaper, more athletic option compared to a guy like Sam Darnold, where I think we just saw the best that he'll ever be. Tim says they'll just Band-Aid the team. Well, the thing is, Tim, is that there's not a franchise quarterback just sitting out there. And so, like I've said a few times in this episode, you got to have some dart throws. So like I said earlier, if they were to trade a day 3 pick for like a Malik Willis or a Joe Milton, I'd be all for it. I don't think that I want those guys to be the starter right away. But if you do bring back a Justin Fields or you do sign somebody else and they're not doing well, then you can turn to a guy like Malik Willis and Joe Milton and say, all right, let's see what you got. Not having a franchise quarterback, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. As Steelers fans, we didn't have to worry about this for 20 years. My entire life growing up, like Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback of this team from when I was in kindergarten until I was a year or 2 out of college. So, like, my entire life never had to worry about this except for the past few years. So, like, Steelers fans kind of forgot what this is like. And by the way, it's a whole new game, too. The last time the Steelers were looking for a quarterback, they had Tommy Maddox for a year in 2002, and they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And even like in the early years of Ben, like, yeah, having a good quarterback is important, but not as important as it is now, where it's, very much almost, an end all be all. So, it's a hard place to be in as a franchise, especially in today's NFL where the quarterback play is so important and so, under a microscope. That's why it's such a highly touted position, because if you find the guy, then you've done the hardest part. But you also don't want to be an organization like the Jaguars, who I think they found the guy. Like, Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, and they've just spent the last 2 years pissing it away. Tony says, and you missed a lot when Cowboys won playoff games with five different quarterbacks. Yeah, like, I'll say this though too, and like, I'm not gonna defend Mike Tomlin or anything like that. It was also a very different game, when Bill Cowher took over as head coach. It's incredible that he got to a Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell. At the same time, though, we are never ever going to see another conference championship game with quarterback play as bad, or like a quarterback matchup as bad as Neil O'Donnell versus Stan Humphries. We're never going to see that again. The league wasn't as quarterback dependent back then. It's a lot more quarterback dependent now. Not to take anything away from what Bill Cowher did. I think that, he, for my money, is the second best head coach in the franchise's history. But a little bit different circumstances at the time. Tom says, Tomlin wants a winning season. I think Rodgers is what we will get, unfortunately. I'm one of the few people who says I'm okay with Aaron Rodgers. My top two options are Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers. I'd be happy with it. I know I'm very much in the minority with that. But very selfishly, I would love to talk to Aaron Rodgers. So that, and look, I know that the Jets didn't have a good year last year, but Rodgers had a fairly good year. Threw 28 touchdowns, only had 11 picks. Like, we just talked about Josh Allen. And look, obviously Josh Allen is far, far, far better than what Aaron Rodgers is right now, but like, they had the same amount of passing touchdowns. I know that Josh had 1 billion rushing touchdowns because he's freaking awesome. So like, I think that, yeah, even though the Jets stunk last year, Aaron himself had a fine year. But real quick, if you guys aren't already subscribed, especially for free agency, subscribe. Going to be doing a lot of Steelers-centric shows, but also a lot of NFL-centric shows. Again, my national podcast, The Pump Fake, also streams on this channel. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll do this a lot throughout the off season, but especially during free agency as it's about to begin. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and be part of the conversation. I know there's a lot of comments coming in right now. It's a lot to keep up. If you want your comment read, we'll stay on for about 10 more minutes. Leave a super chat to ensure that your comments will get read from this point out. Appreciate everybody for tuning in who is tuning in. But yeah, if you're tuning in late, and wondering where's this Sam Darnold stuff coming from, the Sam Darnold stuff is coming from Diana Rossini of The Athletic, who tweeted out about an hour ago saying that the Steelers are expected to make an offer to pending free agent quarterback Sam Darnold. Rossini adds that many around the league believe Darnold will wind up in Seattle, but Pittsburgh is doing its due diligence on any potential options ahead of the new league year. So we'll see what comes of it as this new league year kicks off, and we see where where things go. Now, about 2 hours ago, Diana Rossini tweeted, the Steelers remain interested in re-signing Justin Fields. Should Fields hit the market, the Jets are expected to show strong interest in the 26-year-old. So not really any new information there. For both quarterbacks last year that were on the Steelers roster, it looks like it's either going to be the Steelers or New York. For Justin Fields, it'll be the Steelers or the Jets. For Russell Wilson, it'll be the Steelers or the Giants. And look, if they both go to New York, A, that's hilarious. I would love to see them like cross paths in the hallway. And B, then the Steelers are going to have a lot of questions to answer. And then you're going to have to go get somebody like an Aaron Rodgers and pretend that he's the one that you wanted the entire time in the first place. That'll be a little bit awkward. And then you're going to have to really ask internal questions. All right, do we want to give Sam Darnold, $36 million a year? A lot of questions that you got to ask. And so, like I said, being at this part as a franchise where you don't have a franchise quarterback, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And you gotta keep throwing darts until you find one. They would prefer to keep Justin Fields. We'll see if they end up keeping Justin Fields. And in terms of the draft, man, like, you can't take a quarterback at 21 in the first round. You can't. Like, this quarterback class isn't very good. And if you take Jackson Dart at 21, everybody should be kicked to the curb. If you want to take him like third round, fine. I won't love it, but fine. If you want to take Jalen Milroe in the fourth, yeah, I won't like it, but fine. If you want to get another body in there just to keep throwing those darts, then, I can't say take some chances and then get pissed off when you take chances. But not at 21. Absolutely not at 21. So, again, the Steelers want Justin Fields. He is by far, they're predominant. Hey, we want this guy, number one, top of the list. Number two, I don't think Russ is number two. I really don't. I know that they say that they would prefer to keep one of those two guys. He legitimately pissed off a lot of people in the building when reports came out that he and Arthur Smith weren't getting on. So I think that their number two choice, I don't know, would probably be Darnold at this point, honestly. Maybe Rodgers, but I don't think they want to bring back Russ. And I think at this point tomorrow, we'll have reports that Russell Wilson's a Giant. Just my guess. But time will tell. And like I said, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the little notification bell for when I go live to talk about all things Steelers, all things NFL. And as the NFL free agent period begins, we'll see what moves the Steelers make. And we'll be here to talk about it on the channel as well. So be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, do all that fun YouTube stuff. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I've got to go do a fun little write-up about Josh Allen getting signed, and I can't put it off anymore and keep doing this. This is streaming doing podcasts and everything during this period is always very risky. And as somebody who covers the Bills pretty heavily, now I've got to go talk about Josh Allen. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, be sure to subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. We'll be back to talk more Steelers throughout the week, especially as the free agency period continues. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Have a great night. We'll talk soon.